In a noisy world we pause and hear, a wiser path is becoming clear. Peaceful voices.
Welcome, my friends. Thank you for joining us. I am joined by a wonderful communicator, mediator, someone who helps the community develop resilience through moderate, healthy, compassionate communication methods, the personal development of the heart center, as we may say, as we'll discover in a moment. And I am just very excited to introduce you to Susan Partnow. Susan,
Well, thank
take it
you.
away.
Thank you so much, John. It's a delight to meet you and have this opportunity. And for whoever's listening, I'm always delighted to be able to share the work. Um, when I share it, I get to feel it and be it. And so it's always a privilege and I'd say a necessity for me to teach so that I can, yeah, and just before we were about to begin, I was saying, well, I need to get a little centered. And we thought, well, let's do that right here. So, in fact, whoever is listening, unless well, you wouldn't be driving because, so wherever you are, let's all just take a minute. And I find this even when like I was on a meeting the other day and I could see all the energies like this. And I said, let's just take 1 minute and it shifts the world. So, let's all just take a moment, and feel yourself settled into the chair or the couch, wherever you are, and surrender to gravity, to Mother Earth holding you. Just let go for these next moments or 45 minutes, an hour, whatever. No other place to be. So let go. Notice your breath. Maybe extend the exhalation. That's why we often sigh. It's a way to release. And I'm going to just take a moment and put my hand on my heart and breathe to my heart and offer it some kindness and be present in this very moment, this amazing, miraculous moment. And as I open my eyes, I see this wonderful new friend, John, and his beautiful environment that just makes me feel at peace. Yeah. So good, I feel. I can always hear it in my voice,
Yeah.
just a little slowed down.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you for that.
Mm.
When you are working with groups, do you often find that it's helpful to guide people into that heart space or into a more stable space beforehand?
Absolutely. I really recommend it for all of us, including in the workplace. You may use different words. Let's just pause for a moment and set an intention. And I can hear it and see it in your face and voice too. We just forget, just be in this moment, and everything shifts. And then the meeting goes much better.
Hmm.
Yeah. So,
Hmm. It often seems that quality of compassionate connection is always available just under the noise, under the tumultuous qualities that we walk around with. And it goes to show that we're all capable of that connection and that harmony as long as we learn how to access it or at
yeah.
least remove the obstruction.
Oh, so true. Exactly. I've really come to trust that because I've had this opportunity to teach hundreds of groups over the years. And it's always magical. We always fall in love with each other. We always feel like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful group of human beings. And part of our work and my philosophy that I follow, anyways, is inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh. who uses the term interbeing.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah. And so, of course, it's always there because we are connected. We are one. We and we do just need to. It's like take the veils away that get in the way of the true beingness of who we really are and who you really are. Yeah. And of course, I have to connect to who I really am before I can connect to who you really are. So that's a lot of our work is self connection. We begin with that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they exist in the same heart space. And so we don't have to look far.
Yeah. Well, although I know Leah Green, who is the founder of the Compassionate Listening Project, she always says that the longest journey in the world is the 7 inches from your head to your heart.
I
I
love
love
that.
that. Yeah. Because it's so simple, but we forget, like
Yeah.
in this argument with somebody, and I'm listening to myself say this because I will be in Los Angeles at the end of November with my family. We love each other, but we have extreme disagreements around the Middle East. It can be very painful. And so I know to remember to stay heart centered. I can remember this one time a few years ago because even then there were disagreements before October 7th. And I remember talking to my brother-in-law and my nephew, and it started getting really heated and we're all up in our heads. And all of a sudden I could see them getting reactive, going like, I felt like it was that monster from some terror movie. And I was so I just realized, oh my God. And that's what I did. I just said, let's stop. Oh, this is not how I want this to go. I love you. And that's more important than anything. So I didn't know what to do or what to say except to say, let's just stop. So noticing the energy. Yeah.
Such a gift. Even here in the monastery, so much of our practice doesn't have anything to do with hyper complicated chanting, although that does often happen, or sophisticated, hand shapes or something like that,
Mudra.
where
Yeah,
we
there, yeah.
are cultivating the mudra methods can be really quite something. And at the same time, the main cultivation, the main thing that we're cultivating is stillness. And stillness is not holding still, but rather the complete disinhibition of obstruction so that things settle on their own.
Mm,
And when they settle, they move inward. And so our capacity to learn to listen is made easier because now we're no longer blocked by our own noise and movement and um, the construction of a self that makes it so that we can't relate and connect to somebody else.
hmm.
And so just our capacity to listen as a method can be so powerful. And it's something that really attracted me to your work. And I'm so grateful for this tremendous body of work that you've put out there into the
Thank
world.
you.
And I'm curious if you don't mind, for the people that don't know what you're talking about, the Compassionate Listening
Sure.
Project and the method itself from Thich Nhat Hanh, if you can share as much as you're willing, we'll be grateful.
I would love to. I'd love to. I guess perhaps first a little historic background to the project because we started as the Middle East Citizen Diplomacy Project. Leah Green was the founder, actually inspired by Dana Perry of the Earth Stewards, in case any of the listeners were around when he's unfortunately passed many years ago already, but he was an amazing teacher and mentor to me as well as to Leah, inspired so much. And so the idea was to bring people to the Middle East to listen to all sides and that would help build peace. And that's a beautiful intention and it's still part of our work. But we soon could see we don't know how to listen. I know I was on, I think, the second journey, and oh my goodness, lovely, lovely people, but just getting into arguing. And I had this idea, and no, that's not right. And what about this? Like, that is not what we're here for. And so we can want to listen, but it's really, on the one hand, so easy, and on the other hand, really challenging. And so during those years, Leah was lucky enough to meet an amazing mentor, a woman, Jean Knudsen Hoffman, who was a Quaker. And she had come up with the term, in fact, compassionate listening, and gifted it to us. She just totally took Leah under her wing. And she came to that practice to cultivate it. She was at a conference in London, at a Quaker conference, and one of the rooms said, listening to the terrorist. And she was like, what? What is this? And she was so drawn and came to realize, yes, we could even listen to the terrorist. And her, an important saying, it still guides our work, is that an enemy is someone whose story you haven't heard. So if we connect and listen deeply, we may still have many disagreements, but we will feel that interbeing, that interconnection. So so she started to work with Leah, and she had studied deeply with Thich Nhat Hanh. So a lot of that Buddhist thread of Thich Nhat Hanh interweaves, as well as Quaker practices. And we've also been very inspired by the work of Joanna Macy, who just recently passed, all these great souls. And then Carol Washinsky was another one of our initial mentors. And sadly, she just passed. I mean, she was in her 90s, so she had a beautiful life. So more and more came to understand what we were really about was trying to listen, to learn how to listen. I remember we all were invited down to Jean Knudsen Hoffman's beautiful place in Santa Barbara. Okay, I think about 30 of us came, like, we're going to learn how to do this and then change the world. It was a lovely weekend. And by the end of it, again, I said, Leah, we sort of at times had a taste of it, but we don't really know what it is, let alone how to convey it. So we embarked on a long journey. I won't go into those details. That's another great story of the false starts and stops. But after a few years of experimentation, I remember sitting in the living room with Leah and Carol and a few others of our core team. And we realized, okay, now we know what it is. So let's really like create the structure of it, even diagram it, name it. And now we can learn how to convey it. So that was sort of our history. It is compassionate listening. And we realize that's what we're about. We are the Compassionate Listening Project. And still, when the war is not crazy in the Middle East, taking groups to the Middle East. We've also taken groups to the South and plan other journeys. But primarily teaching these important skills that we need so desperately in our world today. So it's a beautiful practice that I feel like I'm doing all the talking, but I'd love to describe the model and all of that.
I would love to hear. Yeah, I feel like there's so much to it. I know that I've heard you list, for instance, 5 principles elsewhere and some of
Yes.
these basics. And as long as you don't mind teaching a class, we'd be happy to learn.
So I think we do begin with this idea of our interbeingness. So I often just like draw this beautiful flower with each petal a different color and say, well, each of us is one of those petals. We're each unique and beautiful and amazing, but we're all one flower. Although as humans, we are born with this illusion that we're separate. It's hard for us to feel that interbeingness. But at our best, we do feel it. In those moments when we're in that stillness you mentioned, when we really are feeling connected, it's like the differences between, they all just go away and we can feel that oneness, right? And it's a beautiful thing. And even with ourselves, when we're really connected to ourselves, we feel just whole and complete. So that's what we're after, because truly we are all whole and complete. And it's an illusion when we don't feel that way, right? And so we start to think, well, when you really are connected to your heart, feeling whole and complete. What are some of the feelings and values? What's your state? Well, how would you describe that? Can you give me a couple of words that come to mind for you?
Hmm. Yeah, that sense of wholeness, of course, comes along with uh, the quality of peace. In the body, there's this sense of softness that arises, a quality of expansion, because I'm no longer limiting myself in this small way, that deep stillness that we talk about, the deep presence that comes along with no longer pretending I'm not now and here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And it's this expansiveness, and we can like look, oh, what a beautiful world with open to awe and wonder and gratitude and joy, and also sorrow and grief, the purity. It's like a little child. They can go from tears to joy in a moment, right? Because they're fully open and I have access to it all. So we feel like that's who we really are. That inner core, that beautiful heart of wholeness. Yeah. However, in our be this being human, we there's wounding that happens to the most fortunate of us. I remember this with my little daughter, where we were so privileged and we weren't worried about rent or food or anything like that, and she had so much love. And but even there, I remember one day, I got called away. We were just planting some flowers, which I'm not a gardener, so it was like a big deal for me. And I just turned away to get the phone. In those days, they were corded to a cord.
sure.
And
In
I
the Stone
turned
Ages.
back. Yeah, yeah. When I turned back, she had pulled up all the flowers. And I went, Jessica, with this tone. And she just looked startled. I will never forget the look on her face because she had not been judged before, but she knew in that moment. And I felt so terrible. And, soon she explained to me she was just feeding her imaginary horse. I mean, he was hungry. um, but we're all wounded. I mean, and it's often not simple things like that, although those can hurt deeply. There's injustice, there's abandonment, there's abuse, right? All of those things that can happen to us. And then, of course, the systemic things of prejudice and racism and all the isms and classism and lookism, etc. So we all get wounded, and we have stories about that, and the stories we say are sort of the mortar that holds those stories in place, and it becomes like a bricked wall around our hearts. So some of the work we do dissolves those stories, let go of the stories, because very important is we need to, because that wall it keeps us from our own heart. Because then too we have this woundedness, and we're so sensitive, we're so tender, all of us. We want to protect ourselves. So we got the heart, and then this wound that's kind of constricting, and then these strategies of defensiveness, right? Because I want to protect.
That's right. Mhm. Yeah, it's very understandable. We want to protect. We have all these wounds and scars and emotional calluses, and we do our very best. Something looks like it's going to hurt, and then that strategy
Exactly.
sticks.
So we all have our favorite go-tos. I know for me, it tends to be just numbing out, just freeze. And just like, okay, it's like I'm not here. I don't feel anything. Are you aware of what your go-to is when you're?
Yeah, my tendency has been to sort of cut and run.
So of course, the classic fight. Some people fight or flee or freeze. And now they also say tend and befriend, like, oh, I'll just whatever to make it go away. So there's many ways that looks. That is our defensiveness. It's not who we are. It's a strategy to protect ourselves. And sometimes it's even our personality. Some people who tell big jokes, that could be a strategy, right? To really guard and feel safe. So they're not bad things, but we need to look at them, especially if they're not serving us in our way in the world.
Absolutely.
But so I need to be very aware of my own, like, oh, what's going on, and to know, well, if all of a sudden John is speaking louder and louder, or if all of a sudden he says, well, I think we better stop, oh, he's fleeing or he's fighting, to know, so something's going on. And in fact, that's a signal to me with my work that, okay, now I'm going to really listen. Because part of that woundedness can be when we don't feel seen or heard or loved. We all want to be, a friend of mine calls that hizzled. I want to be heard and seen and loved. Hizzled. We all want to be. Yeah. Yeah, so that model really helps me to know I can just even see you are that beautiful heart. But I don't know your wounds, but I know they're there. And sometimes if, we're not behaving at our best, it's that protectiveness. So what compassionate listening is really about is, first of all, I have to reconnect to my own heart and core and sense of wholeness and completeness. Because if I'm out there in my, feeling so defensive, I'm disconnected, right? And it's scary because if I want to connect, I have to realize I'm defensive because I'm really scared or I'm really hurt. Ouch. And then I can be very tender with myself and allow myself, yeah, that is how I'm feeling. And so when I'm connected, then I can try to connect to you underneath. So there may be all this, and there's a lot of noise out there right now, a lot of strategies of people yelling at each other, but like, okay, what are they really afraid of, or what's underneath that? What values aren't being heard or accepted? And can I really see them? And in fact, one of my strategies is to picture the other as their little 4-year-old self. Oh, I can just see you. We're so cute. You are adorable. And it really just opens your heart when you picture somebody, even somebody you don't like. You can just see that sweet little soul who, So that's sort of the model. And what I want is to go from my core, and I kind of draw it like, here's the map of the heart and the square wounds and the protected, that's me, and here's you. And I want to build this golden arch from your whole beautiful core of who you really are to mine. I'm just noticing a shadow here. Or let me know if I go into the dark. Bring light.
Your shadow self
it's
is coming forward.
important to notice and not reject.
Do you mind if I ask you about that process?
Please,
Just because you have so much more experience in this realm of reaching out and relating in this way. I'm wondering, one thing that I've noticed in the clinic, for instance, is that the quality, that aspect of the person that I'm talking to tends to come forward. And so if I'm talking to somebody and acknowledging this quality of interbeing that we're talking about, it seems to touch upon that part of them, and that part of them responds. And I can also slip into talking to the wounded part, and that part of them responds. And in your experience, is it always best to simply speak to that quality of wholeness? Is it better to help a person connect with these other wounds by talking to them directly? How do you navigate that?
Well, it's always hard to speak in total generalities, but I'd say what we find most, what our compassionate listening, that our intention is connection, right? So we can feel our interconnectedness, our interbeingness, and to ourselves and to each other. We call it healing our world from the inside out, by the way. So it has to start with me. So if I know, certainly I'm not going to ignore the fact that this person seems to really be hurting and suffering. I don't want to see them as this. That's not who they are, but that's certainly something they have experienced. So I might say, I'm wondering if you're feeling really hurt right now, and I'm happy to listen if you want to tell me about it. Or are you scared? Or what we often find is reflecting the deepest level is what is really transformative. That allows the person to move to their own core, where they can feel their wholeness. And a lot of that can be seeking the deepest value or yearning within them. I think of it as the source of all the energy. If I'm getting upset or angry or agitated, it's because some beautiful thing that I value for wholeness and completeness is missing or being transgressed or not noticed. And that is really, triggering to me, dysregulating to me. So if someone can help me see what is it really underneath that this is about, like let's say I get into these terrible fights with my family, around the Middle East. And, what is it really about? Oh, justice is so important to you. And love of family. Is that, did I get that? If somebody were reflecting to me, it's like, yes. And then I realized that's what this is all about. It's how important, and I value justice, and I love my family, and loyalty is so important. And they're in conflict right now, and that's what this is about. So it really gets, to the heart and core of the matter. It doesn't make it go away necessarily, but I can breathe now. It's like, oh, that's what this is. So I don't know if that answer is helpful to what you were looking for, but yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. Because I feel like these strategies that you're talking about, they are touching upon a wonderful set of tools in a toolbox that you clearly are used to using and are masterful with. And so, as much as possible, I want people to mm, recognize that they have access
Mhm.
to these tools as well, because we all deal with these conflicts, especially these days where we live and what's
Mm,
happening right now in history and in the world. And so these conversations seem to be perhaps going on more than ever. And so learning how to navigate them compassionately. And when we say compassionately, we mean navigating them well, navigating them successfully, because it's all the same thing. And without destroying our families,
right.
destroying our relationships. This just happened to a friend of mine. He and his long-term partner, they split over some of the difficulties, and they actually agree. They're in agreement about the details, but they're both so caught in that
Hmm.
emotional
Mm,
armoring state that all they can do is
mm,
feel the friction between the two of them. And that was actually enough to separate them, because they weren't able to have someone come through and just
mm.
help negotiate those difficult topics so that they could find their way back. And it's at least in my immediate
Yeah.
vicinity, is something that's becoming more and more common. And so having your toolbox available, I feel like it is such a
Yeah.
blessing.
It really is, and it is so needed. And I don't want anyone to think I am so masterful, because there are times when I get dysregulated too. That's why I'm teaching it. 'Cause the more I teach it, it's like, oh, now I'm in it, I'm feeling it, and getting that groove, the one that I go into. So let me share the five, we call them our five core practices. So they are sort of the skills and practices. We call it a practice because guess what? You have to practice. It's not just, oh yeah, that's a tool. I learned that. No, are you gonna, be able to pull it up when you need it? So the very first one is to cultivate compassion. So first of all, it's exciting to realize, oh, it's like a renewable resource. We can cultivate it even in this scary, crazy, dysfunctional world. Okay. So one of the greatest ways to cultivate compassion is through gratitude. and awe. That right away I mean, you could look at this beautiful plant in your room. I can look out the window. I'm so blessed. I can see a little of the water under the Ballard Bridge, and the trees are shimmering. And like, oh, there's all that life, those cars, who are they? And what a world. And so in that moment, my heart softens and opens, and I'm expanding and reconnecting to that wholeness, that completeness that we were talking about. So that resources me. So always cultivating that compassion is so important. And we can do it in any moment. Any moment. Yeah. Um, and so first for myself, just kindness, like, oh, you're trying so hard, Susan, really being kind, forgiving yourself. And then I'm more generous, and I can be compassionate and forgiving of the other. But again, if I'm not with myself, unlikely that I will be with you, right? So if I'm doing if I'm feeding myself and have some of that compassion, now I have the stamina, the resilience for our second important core practice, which we call developing the fair witness, which is very much mindfulness. It's like go to the balcony, William Ury used to say. Go, it's mediation. And look. So it's like, here I am looking there is Susan with her nephew at it again. So instead of being in it, I'm noticing it. So that little bit of distance, I can even, see the humor or the pathos. I have choice. That gives me a little choice time. So that sounds easy, but it is a lifetime of practice, isn't it?
Sure.
Because you got to do that before you get hooked and say, what are you talking about? Can't you see that it's whatever it is? Okay. So you have to really notice your own physiology. Am I getting dysregulated? I think of the word triggered. I know that's a triggering word for some, but in fact, because once you are triggered, you are off. You lost it. You are disconnected to your center. You are either in that wounded or protective place. So I have to do a lot of work of noticing and managing my own dysregulation, become an expert. So I know the earliest warning sign. So I know for me, if I go, when I hear myself do that, it's like, oh, I'm starting down that road of losing my patience. Okay. So that's my study, or a tightening, or as I said, I tended to shut down. So I spent a lot of time, we call it, do a trigger journal. At the end of the day, how was my day? Where did I get snagged? And then get curious. What was it really about? What is it that snagged me? What was the value underneath? The judgment underneath? So I could really unpack it and learn a lot. And again, when did it start? Before I blew up, what was the earlier sign? Because then there's a chance to make a different choice. So that you can see that's a lot of work ongoing to develop that fair witness and manage our own physiology so we can have access to our own core. And so when we're able to, then we're ready for the third practice. So you aren't even listening yet. But the third, yeah, there's a lot. No wonder we can't listen. So we call the third practice respect self and others. So what does that mean? I mean, some people will say, well, we have to have boundaries. I don't like that. That feels too rigid, and I don't want to be separated. I do think manage the membrane between us, like the cells in my body. They know what's okay to let in. I want to let it all in. That's good. And how do I close the gate to those things that aren't good, right? And our cells every cell of our body is brilliant and knows how to do it. Well, you, as a whole, we are brilliant too when we think about it. So I'm going to respect myself and notice, oh, I'm starting to feel shut down or tense or hurt or whatever. And it's okay. I can say, let's pause for a moment, and I can even let my feelings known. Do I have a request? What's really going on? Like, like I said with my nephew and brother-in-law in that time, like, what I really want is the love between us. That's what really matters to me. Forget all that stuff. We're not going to solve the Middle East. Yeah. The other part, and this is a really great learning in respecting self and others, means I don't have to fix you or rescue you because you know what you need. You are capable. You have agency. You are whole and complete, as am I. So we spend a lot of time learning about that old drama triangle that we do not want to get pulled into. So, do you remember the drama triangle? Cartman's.
The drama triangle? What's the drama triangle?
Well, there's three sort of energies or roles. You don't need three people. You could do it with yourself. You could do it with a crowd of people, but there's sort of three row energies. So where we often get pulled in is the victim. Poor me. It's not fair. Or, oh, everyone else is okay, but not me. So just, and then ain't it awful? And we want to pull everybody in. I certainly enter into many conversations these days around the state of our world and feel often in the victim. And it's hard to, just like, wait, but what can I do about it? It's the way out of it. So, but anyway, we do get pulled in as a victim. Now, what's part of the problem of victim? You can't be a victim without a perpetrator. So it ain't fair because my boss or my husband or whoever, okay? And I'm trying to recruit everybody to agree with me. Now, how do you feel when you're the one that is seen as the perpetrator? We've all, I remember one year, oh my gosh, this team I was on got so dysfunctional and they all they saw me as the perpetrator. It was so painful, so painful. So immediately then you feel like the victim, right? And so then I'm making them wrong. So you can see it's a dance. It pulls everyone into this very dysfunctional space. And then somebody might have the bright idea, I can fix this. And they want to jump in and rescue and fix everybody. How does that go? Then everybody turns on them like, you don't need to tell me what to do. Now they feel like the victim and they've made me the perpetrator, right? Yeah, so it's this dance. As soon as you step in at any one of those points, you're pulling everyone into it. And a lot of our...
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah? Can you recognize it?
Oh, for sure. In my own life, in my own existence, and every place I've ever worked and lived.
Yes.
Certainly.
So what do we do? So we want to step... So sometimes I call the rescue triangle the not okay corral. I don't know if you remember that old film, Gunfight at the OK Corral. That's not okay.
That's
Nobody's
right.
Okay. It's like everyone else is, not me, says the victim. I'm okay and nobody else is, says the perpetrator. And really the rescuer trying to be helpless saying, you're only okay if I fix you. And so not a good place. So we want to step out of that into the circle of wholeness and completeness. I need to connect to my own. So even if I am literally a victim, and I don't want to deny that there aren't terrible things that happen and people are victims of a crime or violence, so it's not about that. It's now, do I identify that's who I am in my life? Can I instead be a creator? That's the way out of being a victim. What are my options? what are the actions like? What can I do? What is within my scope of influence? There's all kinds of ways to think about it, but there's choices. And I can do something no matter what. I mean, we remember Viktor Frankl's amazing book, right? Even in the middle of a concentration camp, you have choice. So that's what I'm saying is we don't have to be that kind of victim. We can have agency and be a creator. And if I feeling like helping or being helpful, I don't need to rescue. Nobody needs fixing, but I could be perhaps a coach. And what is a coach? Well, a coach sees you as whole and complete and just wants to bring out the best, right? A coach has a contract. You don't just start coaching without an agreement, right? So you've got, would you like some help? Would you like a suggestion? Okay. Because they might say, no, just listen. I just want you to listen to me. Yeah. I mean, I remember years ago when I was having some therapy, and when the therapist would start giving me suggestions, it's like, I don't like it. No, some people call me the possibility queen. I have lots of ideas and possibilities. That's not what I need. I don't want your ideas. I got plenty. Yeah. So we can be a coach if the person wants it, because because often just seeing the person as whole and complete is transformative. I remember there was a time in my life I was really stuck in a victim place. I had some health issues and I was miserable and I really felt like a victim. And I just was crying and miserable. And I remember this one friend saying, Susan, I know you're going to make it through this. And it sounds so simple, but it was like cracking open the world, like, I could get through this. I don't have to suffer. I could just accept it. So a coach might have that kind of question or reflection that really cracks things open. And we do try to learn to offer those kinds of reflections sometimes to each other. And then the perpetrator, well, there's a lot of things that we could be challengers and really ask the difficult questions or, state the things. It's okay. Being a compassionate listener doesn't mean I'm all, just never showing up fiercely. I'm the warrior of the heart with an intention. The key is what's the intention? It's not to judge or make wrong, but to connect, to build more wholeness and completeness. So we've got to get out of, so that's all about respecting self and others, getting out of that triangle. Now we're ready to listen from the heart because I'm able to connect to my heart and yours and see you and not get hooked into all this. So I can really be present and listen fully and listen not just to the story, but what's underneath it, to the deepest layer of the values that are really what the source of what this is about. And then I can also speak from the heart. I've got to know my heart and have the courage, and courage is from the heart, courage, right? To speak with an intention to connect, to be truthful, not to harm or make anyone wrong. So those are our core practices.
How wonderful. Thank you so much for that. My gosh. One thing that I tend to ask the people that I have the opportunity to talk to, wonderful teachers and guides like yourself, that a number of the people that tend to tune in to my channel, this community, they're often activists or healers that are in the midst of the difficulty. And like you're saying, very often when you're in that difficult space, it feels like everything in the whole world is like that. And so having somebody from the outside who has a clearer perspective, a broader perspective, who can see beyond that emotional armor that we've created, having somebody offer a perspective of hope of something that is making you feel inspired and joyful in your own life, something that is inspiring hope within you, if you can share that with them. Oftentimes we begin with that, but instead perhaps this is something that we can tie the conversation up with. What is it that is filling your heart these days that we can share with the people who are perhaps missing that in their own world view?
Well, I guess in my own world, I'm still feeling the high from Saturday because I was out there with, was it Saturday? Yeah, tens of thousands of people, creative, costuming, just joyful, having fun. And it was fun. Instead of being righteous, it wasn't I've also been to marches where it's righteous and we're right and they're wrong, which there's a lot of energy in that, but really it's not going to bring us to a place of moving forward. So I think right now, feeling solidarity, knowing how many people are awake to at least the way I see things happening in our world, and really working hard to, it's very hard right now to not demonize the other, but to try to listen and understand, and then try to imagine, okay, what is a way forward? So I think knowing I'm not alone, that it makes me very hopeful. And there's so many brilliant, wonderful people, including leaders like, I'm very lucky to be in Pramila Jaipal's district, and she's just such an inspiration. And she's the epitome of showing, okay, she's educating people. I don't know if you've had a chance. She gives workshops online, and like 50,000 people have taken it. Yeah, they're great workshops to learn the nitty gritty of what is happening and the history of other times on the planet when things have slipped towards this kind of tyranny, disintegration of democracy. So understanding it, what a positive move, teaching us where's there been success, so what is the way forward? And wow, I get very hopeful. Every Thursday, yeah. So being in the presence of others who especially are wise and not just, frothing at the mouth, but smart about this and finding ways forward. And then, of course, every time I have the privilege of holding space with others and seeing how people open up and are so happy in their hearts, and the love, as you were saying, it's always there. It just sometimes gets coated over. And so that gives me the faith and the trust that it is always there. And that, and I'm remembering a time right after 9/11, my impulse is to organize. I was younger then, so I got this, worked with a couple other people, and we called together a rally down at Westlake in Seattle. And I was up there, giving my talk. I had my perspective. And for the first time in my life, I was heckled. There was someone in the audience heckling me. And I managed to get through and not get hooked and, be able to give the message. And I made a choice after. I want to go and listen. I am curious. I'm not going to make that person an enemy. I want to know, because conflict is really an invitation that there's something disconnected. We don't like that. So let's get curious and find out. So I went to this person, found him in the crowd. And I said, I noticed you were really agitated and disturbed by what I was saying. And I really wanted to understand more. What is this for you? And it turned out he was, terrified, in anguish. He had actually lost loved ones in the tower. So I could really hear, you're really hurting and you're afraid and you're really sad, wow. And I said, I get that. I have so much of that. I feel that too. And I see we have a different strategy in mind. He was full of anger and wanting to go and attack. And I was saying, why did this happen? And I want to go listen to see, what created such a divide in our world that this could come to be. But we were connected in our sorrow and our fear and our grief. And it was so, I wished, I call for that insight and wisdom to be with me, all the time. And that was just a very dramatic moment when it was. And it's not always, but it's wonderful when I'm able to remember that. And I invite everyone, to that. So knowing it's possible, if I do these practices, everything is possible. So yeah, that makes me hopeful.
Susan, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a joy.
For me as well. And for everyone who's watching, please do check down below for all of the links and available information, summary of the steps, so that we can continue our journey in learning and bringing these teachings to our community, hopefully for more resiliency, more compassion, and a better place for all of us.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Hooray!
Right.
Thank you so much for joining us, and a heartfelt thank you to Susan Partnow for sharing her wisdom, her care, and her deep experience in the communication of nonviolence. Conversations like this remind us that the way we speak, the way we listen, and the way we relate to one another, these are not small things. This is the work. If you'd like to explore more, you can find us on YouTube at Peaceful Voices Podcast. And you're always welcome to support this work through Patreon under John Blue. Until next time, take a breath, listen a little more closely, and see if you can bring just a bit more compassion into the relationships in your life.